In this video, we'll now illustrate those various steps of the exegetical process that you've seen in a prior video. The passage that we'll focus on is Psalm 114. When Israel went out from Egypt, the house of Jacob from a people of strange language, Judah became God's sanctuary, Israel his dominion. The sea looked and fled, Jordan turned back. The mountains skipped like rams, the hills like lambs. Why is it, O sea, that you flee, O Jordan, that you turn back? O mountains, that you skip like rams, O hills like lambs? Tremble, O earth, at the presence of the Lord, at the presence of the God of Jacob, who turns the rock into a pool of water, the flint into a spring of water. This, incidentally, is coming from the New Revised Standard. Incidentally, in order to stay on the same page in this course, from one presentation by lecturer or observations by students, I will be asking that all of us use the New Revised Standard, the NRSV, for all of our coursework. Now, if you wish to consult a different version, that's fine. If you wish to bring in information from another version as secondary, that's fine. But I think you can appreciate that if someone is quoting an insight in a class contribution that's coming from, for example, NIV, another very, very fine modern translation, and they might base their insight on the wording of NIV, and myself or others in the class are staying with the NRSV, we may not understand how you got that insight. So for purposes of clarity and understanding each other, it will be important that we all work from the NRSV as our principal launch point of reading and exegetical interpretation and insights. Once again, feel free to use other versions secondarily, and when you are quoting from them, please indicate, oh, by the way, this is coming from the NIV or from some other Bible. We want to keep in mind that as we're studying Scripture in English, we are not studying it in the original. Originally, the Hebrew Bible would present the Scriptures in the Old Testament, and the Greek New Testament would present then the later material. You might enjoy hearing some of this in Hebrew. This happens to be from a CD by Cindy Paley in California. B'tzeit Yisrael is the name of this particular track, since those are the leading lines, the leading words here in the upper right. The name of the CD is A Singing Seder, and you'll be hearing her singing in a fairly light and almost a playful tone, not mocking at all, because she has designed this for children. Now let's walk through the 4 phases of exegesis that we've seen already in an introductory lecture. Location, followed by observation. Then we're ready to move on to interpretation, and finally apply the text to our own lives. When we look at Psalm 114 in terms of location, we're in a slightly unusual situation, since of all the books in the Bible, the Psalms present one book where the divisions, the boundaries, are quite well fixed. You have the beginning of a poem, the end of a poem, and the next one will have a new chapter number, a new psalm number. There are admittedly 1 or 2 places where scholars have a hunch that 2 adjacent psalms may originally have been one, but by and large, the psalms are well divided. So that makes our task of location rather easy. And frankly, it's not a very good example for you, but please follow the idea, and then you'll be able to apply it in another passage later on. So here are the steps. Step A, we want to verify the adjacent boundaries. That is the upper and lower. Now look on the the right panel, A subpoint 1. We want to ask ourselves prior to verse 1, that is the first verse of our passage, was it indeed a different composition? And we can see easily that it is. Incidentally, if we were working in historical narrative, if we were working in an account of events in Jesus' life, it might be, for example, a sequence of healings. Perhaps a first healing, a second healing, and a third healing. Maybe we are focusing ourselves on only the second healing. This task of paying attention to the upper boundary means that we would go to where that second healing begins, and then we would read just a little before it, and sure enough there we would see that there is a separate healing. Someone else was sick with a different ailment, and maybe it even happened in a different place, so we would clearly be able to see that it was a separate story, a separate pericope. Admittedly, still sharing the theme of healing, but a different healing. It's that kind of thought process that we want to go through. It's simple and yet very important. We don't want to violate it. A subpoint 2 then on the right, after the last verse of Psalm 114, it has 8 verses, then we want to go after that, and we'll come to a new poem, a separate theme. Now, they are separate poems before and after this one. Nevertheless, we want to look at them. We want to look at 113 prior. We want to look at 115 after. We want to listen to the main messages. We won't spend a lot of time with it, but give it a quick view, reading it over rather rapidly, and listen for the themes. You can do that on your own. I've extracted here what themes impressed me. So from Psalm 113, we find it talking about praise coming not just from some narrow place, but actually the whole earth praising God. And there's also a message that people who are needy find refuge or find assistance from God. How about the composition after our target passage of 114? In 115 that is, we find the psalmist saying, what you need to do is trust God, and don't put your trust in foreign gods, in idols which are no God at all. And now we come to step C. We have verified that the boundaries of our passage are valid. We're not disrupting the passage, cutting it in the middle. We have already explored the larger composition, step B. Within the larger composition, we've seen what comes before and after. And then step C is real valuable. Don't want to spend an immense amount of time, but take a moment to ask yourself, does the material before in 113, does the theme or material in 115 somehow help my text, 114, help me understand it a little better? Is there some continuity? Is there some development of thought going on here? And here's what we can extract. We can see that statements in 114, such as the injunction, "Tremble, O earth," that's a command to take God very seriously and respect Him. This becomes a little more significant in the context of 113, because 113 has also been addressing the whole earth, global praise. So that's one concept that comes out. Psalm 115 also talks about Israel in relation to a larger context. Don't trust foreign gods. It has a large view, a wide view. So both 113 and 115 have a fairly wide-angle view, and that helps us to hear that perspective in 114. It becomes reinforced for us. That's really as far as we want to go with the question of location. We have assured ourselves that we are legitimate in studying this division of Scripture, these verses within the one poem. And then we can move on then to step 2, observation.